Building a family can be a complicated, messy, lonely, and sometimes heartbreaking process. But you don't have to navigate this challenging journey alone. Welcome to the All Paths podcast, where we support and celebrate all of the different ways there are to try to grow your family. We're your hosts, Emily and Leanne from the nonprofit organization All Paths Family Building. And today we're talking with Elana Frank about her journey and work in this space. Elana, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Before we get into your story, we would love for you to introduce yourself for our listeners.
Sure. So I'm Elana Frank. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I am mom to three boys, all via fertility treatments. And I'm the CEO and founder of the Jewish Fertility Foundation.
Great. Thank you for that introduction. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey to starting a family? Where did it all begin?
Surely. So I am Jewish and I am a good Jewish girl in the sense that I grew up going to Jewish day school, Jewish camps. I thought I'd get married and have a million babies because that's what we do. And when I finally met my husband in my late 20s, we thought we were going to do just that. So we ended up meeting in America, but we moved to Israel, and that's called making Aliyah. And we got to it, right? That's what newly married couples do. And honestly, after 3 months, I felt in my bones like something's weird. Like, why am I not getting pregnant? And it was only 3 months, but I'm a pretty proactive person. And so I said, okay, let me go to the gynecologist at least. I'm a new immigrant in a country that offers socialized medicine. I was navigating the system anyway, and I needed a doctor. So I went to the gynecologist, and they don't ask you in Israel how long you've been trying. They ask you how long you've been married. And so we had already been married over a year and a half, and we weren't using any sort of protection. So she quickly put me on Clomid. Like really, like that was like not nothing invasive. Like, okay, here's some
Yeah.
Clomid. Like, let's see how this goes. And I also remember she like squeezed my nipple and milk came out. And I was like, holy crap. That's weird. And I think that she had checked me and my prolactin rates and like, or my
Mhm.
numbers, and it was not like a hormonal issue. It was just something, which was weird. Um, no more information there. Like it ended there. And I, tried Clomid for months and nothing happened. And I was like convinced that I was going to get pregnant right away. I remember I actually came back to America for a wedding and I was wearing a dress and I was like, "Ooh, I had a little bump. I'm sure I'm pregnant." Joke was on me. Fast forward every Friday, there's no work in Israel on Friday. It's like a Sunday, I guess. We would go to lunch with my big family in Israel, my aunt and my cousins and all their kids. And every week they'd be like, okay, what's going on? Israelis are pretty pushy in general and direct. And my aunt would be like, come on, like, where's the babies? Like, do you know how to have sex?
Just the question you want a family member to ask.
It's weird. We're a very informal family anyway, but like this was now about 17 years ago. And I don't know, I was like a little girl embarrassed. Like, I don't want to talk to you about this. And then at one point she'd be like, just relax, like you'll be fine. And I wasn't talking about infertility. I didn't even probably know the word at the time. And then she pulled me aside. She worked in the medical industry and she said, listen, like if you need help, call this guy. And we were at the point we were ready for something next. And remember the internet 17, almost 18 years ago now was different, right? It was just,
Yeah,
you don't
definitely.
Google or do AI to search, how do I make a baby? Like it was very, very different. And so we said, okay, we'll call this doctor. It was a private doctor. He was the head of a big university fertility clinic. And he also had private office hours in his home, which is not crazy because if you want to pay in a country that offers healthcare, socialized healthcare, that's okay. And like we're American, we're used to writing checks. So we started going to this doctor that my aunt recommended. And we were going like at 8:30 at night, an hour away from our house, and we were doing this for months. The one thing he never checked my body. And we started doing IUIs. Okay, my husband would go in the bathroom, do his business, come out with a thing of sperm. Together, we would look under the microscope, put it in me. And nothing was
But
working.
no testing leading up to that? Just
Nope,
jumped right to the
jumped
IOS?
right to it. And eventually, like I started getting some shots and like it was a medicated IUI cycle. I was gaining weight. I was looking pregnant because sometimes the hormones, make that happen. And the two of us were like, this is weird. Like we knew it was weird. We didn't know why it was weird because we wanted to be, he wanted to make me happy and get a baby, right? And so he was doing everything. Again, after like, we probably did this for 6 months, 6 months too long. We're like, let's get a second opinion. And we found somebody within my insurance that like does this. And like, all this is wasted time. And finally, we went to the doctor and he's like, I know this guy. Like, what is he doing? And he finally checked my tubes. My tubes are blocked. So all this time, I would have never gotten pregnant from an IUI. And if I did, it could have been an ectopic pregnancy.
That's so
It was
frustrating.
Yeah.
such like just wasted emotion, time, and money, right? Like in a
Mhm.
country where you
Yeah.
shouldn't be paying for this. It was really frustrating. My husband and I were in therapy. People where I was working were like literally poking my stomach. Again, a very direct country, being like, come on, you've been married a while. What's going on? And like, I just did not have the language to talk about this. Friends and family back in America knew nothing of what was going on because we didn't talk. It was very different then.
Mhm.
I was on, do you remember what Baby Center
Oh,
was?
yes, I
That
do.
was all
Yeah.
there
Yep.
was. And I couldn't connect. I'm Jewish. It was very like, if anything was faith-based, it was Christian. And I just like, it was
Mhm.
not speaking to me. It was not, I was in a different country. And ultimately, click, click, click. After we discovered my tubes are blocked, great, no problem. You're in the system. We can do IVF in 3 months. Okay, I did it. I retrieved a tremendous amount of eggs. I think we made like 23 embryos. That was not my problem. Back then, we didn't test them. And I used all 23 embryos to have two children.
Oh, wow.
Like, and it worked the first two times, meaning they would put two or three in. Each of my older kids now, one is almost 15 and one is almost 13. They each started off as twin or two, I should say. And they each, diminishing twin
Mhm.
syndrome at like 6 weeks and 8 weeks. It was frustrating, but it wasn't like sad. I was so excited to have those children. And it was tough in that period of time. But then trying to have my third child was the hardest. It was the hardest part of my journey. I had two babies. I was busy, but like I knew we always wanted four kids. Like that was our goal. Like that's what we planned. And we came back to America when I like two kids under two. When my 6 week old like was 6 weeks, we literally came on a plane with a 1 year old and a
Wow.
6 week old. That was a whole nother crazy story. But I knew we weren't done and I didn't really need my husband anymore for this. So I would leave the babies at home and I was going back and forth to Israel. We started in
Oh, wait. So
America.
even after you moved, you were still doing
I
fertility
had
treatment
embryos
back.
there.
Okay.
I wasn't paying my Israeli taxes, so I couldn't get it for free. I had to pay. But the price for a transfer in Israel, first of all, I negotiated. I knew these doctors, and it was like we're talking like maybe $1,500, like something nominal. I knew the doctors in America, they would start the process. I would literally go back and forth. I did that 3 times and I used up all my embryos and I failed. And we decided together, this is one thing that we could agree on, is like we didn't want to do the invasive process again. And we always had in our heads that we were like into adoption, even before we knew anything. And so at this point, we were living in Atlanta, Georgia, and we decided to try to use the foster care system, not to foster, but to foster to adopt. And we went through the process of that, which took in itself about a year to get certified. And we also learned that there was a 3 year wait list for a baby. And so during this time, my husband and I are very different in many ways. But what I loved was that he was like, I want to adopt an older sibling unit, like for altruistic purposes. And I was like, let me get behind it. Let me get behind it. And I remember one day, like this is after a year and like nothing was really coming our way. I like went into his office in a big open space and I was like, Jason, I don't want to adopt an older sibling unit. I want a baby. I want a baby to make my own. And like cuckoo person, like who does that? And he's like, let's go in the hallway. We could talk about this. And he's like, always had a thing about not wanting to be an older dad. He's 5 years older than me. And he always had like a limit, like no more kids after I turn 40. This is already beyond that. And he's like, fine, take 6 more months and like you can go try to find your baby. And keep in mind, because of the work that I do at Jewish Fertility Foundation, I was literally, my office was in a reproductive attorney's office. So like pregnant women were coming in all the time. And I was just like, can I have your baby? And people would be like, do you have acreage and horses? And I'd be like, no, I don't have acreage and horses. Like just so many things that do you have other children? We want this to be your only child. I do have other children. I promise I'll love this child as my own. And just failure after failure. But also because of the work that I do, I am a matchmaker. So people reach out to me all the time from the Jewish community and say, listen, I'm done growing my family. I have these embryos in the freezer. What can we do with them? And I don't want to discard them. I don't want to give them to science. Like, could I donate them? And I help people on the other side, intended parent wise, match up. I wasn't thinking about myself because we were adopting. And then finally, one day I had this complicated case. A woman was like very particular about what she wanted. And I was like, I can't find you this person, but I'm that person. Would you consider me? And then I asked my husband what he thought of it. And he's like, how much does it cost? Like everything was like, how much, how much? I was like,
It's
well,
expensive,
it's free. No, you can't buy an embryo, right? But the
but the
process
process.
of they were in New Jersey, the transportation
Yep.
cost,
The legal fees, yeah.
all that stuff. So I was like, well,
Yep.
it's going to be less than like a formal adoption. There's no babies in foster care for us right now. So I don't know, less, around 10,000, which was pretty accurate. And the donor said, okay, yes, let's do it. And it took about a year to literally go through all the FDA regulations and move the embryos. But my story did end happily. I put 2 embryos in and one took, and I now have a 7-year-old from that process. So that's my
Wow.
personal journey. I didn't end up with 4 kids, and I'm a very happy mom of 3.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah.
Surely.
Yeah.
So when you were going through all this, it sounds like your family was very involved in some ways, but you mentioned that, when you're in Israel, people who were in the US didn't really know what was going on and you struggled to find support. I mean, I remember the baby center days.
Mhm.
My kids are 13, so
Yep,
definitely in
exactly.
that time frame.
Yep.
So at what point in your journey did you decide to start the Jewish Fertility Foundation? How did that come about? Was that
Yeah.
in the midst of everything? Was that after
Yeah.
you moved back to the
So
US?
we moved back to the US now about 13 years ago. And I remember sitting in the baby pool at a JCC, a Jewish Community Center, with my 2 little babies. And some, which is gross in itself, but I was sitting with 2 people who I had grown up with in Atlanta, and somehow we got into the conversation of how much did your baby cost? And I was like, huh? Like we all went through, we opened up that we had all used fertility treatments. And then we opened up, it was, hard with our husbands, it was stressful, the roller coaster, all the things we all know. And then they said, well, how much did your process cost? And I was like, what do you mean? Like it was free. It was Israel. I think I paid like $500 for the whole thing because I wanted a specific doctor. And they started sharing, well, my twins were $65,000. My daughter, cost like 30,000. And I was like, what? And I was shocked. And I came out of that pool. I've always been in the nonprofit sector. I've always been a fundraiser for nonprofits. And I was like Googling like where where's the support in the Jewish community to be able to help fund fertility treatments? Like there's scholarship for school, there's scholarship for camp. I mean, we have so many amazing wraparound services in our community, but where's the support? Like literally when you're a young individual couple going through this, and I couldn't find anything. And from that point on in 2015, like I was on a mission, and we started in May of 2015.
Wow, that's really, really touching story. I love how community is what sort of ignited this passion, and you saw the need and were able to solve the problem. I think I also have 17-year-old twins through IVF, and I think similarly to that time, there weren't a lot of there's not wasn't a lot of infrastructure around some community and support. So just those conversations you were having in the pool led to all of this. Did you have other supports throughout the process that helped to support you personally when you were going through the journey?
So I really separate both of like, I feel like my time in Israel versus my time in America. When I was in Israel, the only thing my husband and I had is like we went to a marital like counselor. But no, it sucked. I was alone. The truth is like I didn't really understand that I was part of a bigger community than, the community nobody wants to be a part of. And, I remember talking to friends back in America who had gotten married around the same time, and they're like, we're pregnant. Like, I wasn't sharing it because I just didn't know what to say. With my third child, I had the support of Jewish Fertility Foundation. So when we were trying to adopt, I couldn't go to my own support groups because that's weird, but I did take advantage of our peer-to-peer mentorship program and therapists. So I had a fertility buddy when I was trying to adopt, somebody on the other side who had gone through adoption. When I pivoted, there weren't so many people who had done embryo donation 8, 9 years ago. But I had a woman named Linda Stam who wrote books at the time. She's a retired fertility therapist, and she was my buddy. And it was like I was getting free therapy, and she was an expert in embryo donation. So
That's perfect.
it was perfect. It was perfect. And she was volunteering for an organization and a cause she cared about, and I was the beneficiary of it. So it was very different going through it. But man, those 5 years trying to have my third child were like exhausting. So many times I would have chosen the process over my husband. Like really though, like I was like, I don't need you anymore. And he's like, you've got to like live in your life because it was taking over everything. At one point, my mom and my husband sat me down before I was going to do the embryo donation transfer. And they're like, listen, you're going to put both in telling me what to do. You're going to put both in. I was like, well, what happens if they both don't take? Or what happens if they both take? They're like, great if it's twins. If it doesn't take, we're done. Like both of them, they're like, you need to be done. You need to focus on what you have. And it was always like, other people are like, well, you should just be happy with having your two kids. And of course, it wasn't one or the other. Of course I am. But they were very like, you are not focusing on what you should be focused. And it's so hard when you're in it to see that.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's so true though. You can be very happy and at the same time feel like your family still isn't complete.
Yep.
It can be hard when the outside world doesn't
Yep.
necessarily understand that one does not detract from the other. You can hold both things at the same time.
Exactly. Yep.
Can you talk a little bit more about just how the journey affected your relationships? I know you've brought up kind of family and your husband a couple of times.
Yeah. Well, so my mom is my biggest champion in life and in general. And she actually has her own connection to our world. And she had a stillbirth. How old am I? Almost 47. So she had a stillbirth about 45 years ago. And it was a weird situation at the time. They essentially, because she had a C-section with me, they made her keep the baby inside of her. I mean, she was in her 8.5, like she was 8.5 months pregnant. So she had to keep this baby inside of her and deliver naturally. I don't think they do this anymore. Like it was a crazy situation. And she thinks about this baby every single day. Like it was her,
Oh,
son. And it messed up, I believe, her relationship with my dad, who couldn't understand the emotions behind it. And so it comes from a real place of like empathy, different experience, but like the desire to be a mom and, really gets it. The trouble is that I was living in her house when we had come back from Israel. And so which was an amazing gift when you have two little babies. So I would leave my babies with her and my husband, go to Israel, come back, you know, would buy like 4,000 pregnancy tests. And like every time I would take one, because I was cuckoo, I would just see her face and it would be like, It's like she didn't know what to say, but it was like that pity look did not work for me. I don't know what I needed, but it was not like, I'm good. Like, I don't want to talk about it. We're living in the same house. You obviously know what's going on. Like, no. And even one time, my husband, after one of my trips to Israel, like pulled one of the tests out of the trash can and was like, "It's positive." And I knew it was a faded, like it was too old. What was the word? Like
Yeah.
it was too old.
Pass
It
the
was
time, whatever, like
exactly.
15 minutes. Yeah.
Yes. And I
Yeah.
still was like, maybe it is pot. Like, you're like, I was just like
Yeah.
nuts, like in my own world. And like my mom got involved and, it's a lot. But what was cool is that from this, we learned that moms, intended grandparents or grandparents are really part of the process. They want to help more than anything in the world, but sometimes they don't have the right language or tools of how to. So, like at the organization I run, we provide all sorts of training for intended grandparents. And even my mom today is a fertility buddy for other intended grandparents because they're going through their own journey too. She always likes
Mm.
to tell me she went through her own thing because when she was sitting at her mahjong table, when I was going through something, she couldn't talk about it. It was private. But she wanted to show her friends, pictures of the baby or ultrasound pictures, and she didn't have that. And so she had her own journey as well. And now she gets to talk about this with other intended
mm.
grandparents.
Oh, I love that the support extends to that level as well.
It is. It's a
Yeah.
family thing. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, can you talk a little bit about how you talk about this now with your children?
So we're a very open family. I mean, my big kids joke with the middle kid. They're always like, "Are you cold? Are you cold? You were in the freezer for a year." Like before, when we moved back to America, I think he was like 3. He wrote me a Mother's Day card with his teacher talking about how like he came in the world as an embryo and I'm his princess, like kind of funny, but they've been using this language before they knew how to use it. It was a different conversation when we started talking about donor embryo, and it was never a secret. So it's an open relationship that we have with the donor. She's a single mom by choice, so she chose sperm. And my son has a full biological sister and brother. We met them I only met them. They came to Atlanta. They live in a different state. They came to Atlanta when my son was 6 weeks old. And the day that we all met, my husband actually had a work trip. They came in the door. I picked him up from the airport, and my oldest son was having a kidney stone. We didn't know at the time. I was like, okay, here's the baby. I'm like, is this weird? I have to go to the hospital. There's milk in the fridge. Like, I have to go. And we were there for hours. And like, that was the way that like our families got integrated to one another. Now, like every summer we make sure to get the kids together. They're very close in age. They love each other. They're very much cousins. My son's brother, actually, who's a year older, might actually like come spend a week with us in the summer. They might go to camp together. Like we're
Oh,
cousins.
fun.
And so it's never been, he loves going around my son and being like, I have a biological brother and sister. It's just part of him.
Mhm.
He's proud of it. There's just no questions or secrets or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's really wonderful. Parenting goals right there.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. We're going to screw up our kids somehow. So we'll see how we're going to screw up. I'm just using the best practice that, first of all, it's natural for us to be open, and the data shows today to be as
Mhm.
open from the start
Yeah.
as possible.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I love how it's just always been a part of your extended family story to them. There's
Yeah.
never a point where, like we have to share this big, deep, dark secret like they, used to be recommended. We had somebody reach out. So our org has been around for 50 plus years. Last year we had somebody call who wanted resources on telling their child that they were donor conceived. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, here's our book list, like, starting
Yeah.
with like the board books. And she's like, no, no, she's in her 20s.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, um, here's some resources.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that you're now having to do this because you did what you were told was best practices at the time. So I'm so glad that we now
Exactly.
have the knowledge to say like, no, this is the way that it should be done.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean we've experienced that as well, people reaching out to us. And yeah, I'm glad we never had to like tell because that would be hard. My grandmother, unfortunately, she has Alzheimer's now, but for the past few years, she'd always be like, well, how's his mother doing? And I was like, thank you for asking. I'm the mom. His donor is doing well, but it's just like so hard to ingrain language into
Mhm.
older
Yeah.
generations. But he's one of the babies of our family and very much loved by all.
That's wonderful. So you've talked a little bit kind of throughout your own story about the different resources that you have at the Jewish Fertility Foundation, but can you talk a bit specifically about how
Yeah.
JFF supports growing families?
Absolutely. So we're an 11-year-old organization. We started in Atlanta where we are fundamentally a community-based organization. Today we're in 10 communities nationally and we're scaling. So when we're in your community, we offer financial assistance, emotional support, and education to anybody regardless of religious background. So our money financial grants are for the Jewish community. We work with many interfaith couples. We work with the LGBTQ plus community. We want to help you on your path to parenthood. We have almost 50 partnerships with fertility clinics across the country that help us reduce the rate of treatment to be able to help make it more affordable to those in need. And we also partner with local Hebrew free loans or interest-free loans to help cover the balance of the cost. So it's pretty significant financial assistance, but we know that it's not only the money that makes this process hard, it's also the emotional support and the education. So we offer support groups open to anybody going through any sort of journey. We also offer now today national support groups to anybody, anywhere. And we offer a fertility buddies program, as I was sharing before, for intended grandparents, but it's for anybody, anywhere with any sort of journey. So if you're coming to us and you're a single mom by choice, we're happy to match you up with another single mom by choice who's been on this journey before. It's less about them, it's more about you. I know when I was going through it, like I wasn't talking with my friends and family. Like I didn't want to burden them. My husband was over it, but I needed somebody. I needed somebody to tell me, don't give up. It's going to be okay. And hold my hand through the process if I wanted to cry, not cry, do whatever. And then education wise, we work very closely with the fertility clinics. We're like non-annoying pharmaceutical companies. Like we come in and we bring I mean, maybe they're not annoying. I shouldn't say that. But like we bring cookies and swag because they're our number one referral. Everybody has to go to a clinic. Not everybody in our world is going to a synagogue or to the Jewish community center. If you're not engaged in the Jewish community, you still have to go to one of the clinics. And so they're always referring clients to us. We work a lot with our clergy to make sure that they have the tools and resources and language of how to talk to their community members. And then we do all sorts of panel conversations. Two of my favorites are Pathways to Parenthood. I love talking about embryo donation anytime. But there are amazing ways today where you can grow your family and understanding the tools and the people in your community who are doing the amazing work. And then also, we do a lot around loving someone with infertility. So, what to say, what not to say, and how to really support those going through it.
That's fantastic. Now,
Thanks.
you have some new programming that's being developed. Am I right? Around gestational surrogacy?
Yeah, good reading. So we are one of the things that we've been focused on probably for 4 years now is really looking at the LGBTQ plus community and not having it like be like an add-on service. Like if you're, two men going through a surrogacy journey, like sitting in one of our support groups for secondary infertility. Like it doesn't match. And so about 4 years ago, we really wanted to make sure that the programming aligned with the needs. And we feel really good about what we're offering from an emotional support perspective, but we also feel like the medical grant that we're offering, which is up to $10,000, working only with the fertility clinics is limiting to people who need a surrogate. It doesn't have to be from the LGBTQ community, anybody. Like, because you're talking about crazy numbers of up to like $200,000, we're only paying the itty bitty medical portion. And right now, we're in a pilot phase where we are offering a little bit more significant grants, up to 20,000, which is not huge, we know, but we're trying to see if we can also be able to secure the wraparound discounts through surrogacy agencies, through oh my God, what's it called when this is menopause. This is the other phase of life. Um, where you hold your money.
Oh, the escrow accounts and all
Escrow.
that.
Yeah. So like, can
No.
we seek discounts from escrow companies,
Yeah.
those type of
Legal
things?
fees, all,
Just
it
all of
all
that
adds
in
up.
order,
Yep.
because we know $20,000 is nothing. We hope it's a hug from the Jewish community to say, I'm so sorry you're going through this. You must have gone through a lot before you got to this point. But that's really going to help us understand if this is an efficient program or really going to be helpful.
Wonderful. So I have another question about something that happened recently. I don't know if you want to share, but
Yeah,
I know you all just got a very large gift from the Marcus Foundation. Do
we
you have
did.
specific plans for that?
Yeah, so first of all, this has been like they've been champions of ours for over 10 years now. And really have focused on, I like to say that like the not the sexy stuff. Like what's sexy is like really helping a family be able to financially afford treatment, right? Because that equals a baby, like please God, right away. The non-sexy stuff are really, really important things like the infrastructure, like staff. We don't have any office
Hmm.
buildings. We have 17 staff across the country doing amazing work, but like they're doing good work if they're in their car driving to meet clients or doctors or rabbis. And so the Marcus Foundation grant is heavily funding our infrastructure. We figured out how to offer the direct service. Today, we're really a fundraising organization also. We have to continuously fundraise in order to be able to fill our buckets to give out money to people in need. And so through this grant, we're able to really focus on building those processes, systems, and people to be able to maintain our work. Also, for the first time ever, they are helping us fill our bucket a little bit to increase what we've budgeted for this year around fertility grant allocations. We're hopeful this year that we're going to be giving out about $1 million in fertility grants. And really, I mean, that's my dream. The demand is substantially increasing year to year, especially in some of our communities like DC, Maryland, Virginia, Atlanta, Denver, just across the board. We're still, even with this amazing funding, it's not like we have to be able to say, like, we're good, we're set, because we're absolutely still very much in fundraising mode.
Well,
Yeah,
congratulations. That's really
yeah,
exciting.
It
it's
is
really
fun.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's such a need. It's something that we
Mhm.
hear a lot in the support groups here at All Paths, which is that, unfortunately, finances can play a big role in whether a family keeps going or an individual keeps going.
Yep. I mean, the stories we hear and get to read through the personal statements on the fertility grant applications are just like, I, I can't imagine not being able to pay for this. And yeah, I mean, it's really heartbreaking and then also heartwarming when we're able to help.
Sorry, you may have answered this already, but I know you said your programming is available to anybody, regardless of religious
Yep,
denomination. Is that
yep.
also true for the grants?
The grants are for the Jewish community, though we
Okay.
work with many couples who are married to somebody not Jewish or partnered with somebody not Jewish. So as long as
Okay,
one
but
person is
one
married.
person if there's a
Yep.
partner.
Yes.
Wonderful. And if anybody listening is interested in applying, are there deadlines? Is it open enrollment? Can you talk a little bit about the process?
Yeah, the process, it is rolling, which is one of the things that we're really proud of because we understand that, gosh, when you get the all clear from your doctor, like you don't want to wait 6 months to try to be able to apply
Right.
for funding. So it is rolling. We offer decisions about every 4 weeks. It's a pretty invasive process. You already, we are really looking at your financial need. It doesn't have to do necessarily with your salary. We're looking at the full budget, the full package. Like if you've already spent $100,000, right? Like we take that into account. We also want to understand that you are able, or how are you going to pay for the balance? Since we're not covering the full amount, we have to make sure we understand that. We do need somebody to vouch for you, a reference in your community. We'd love to understand who you are and who, how you're hoping to raise this child. And you already need to be at the point where you have a plan in place with your reproductive endocrinologist, your fertility doctor. So, because they are actually filling out the medical portion of the application.
Great.
We will put the link in the show notes for anybody who's listening who wants to check that out.
Amazing.
So as we wrap up, there are a couple questions we like to ask all of our guests, and we would love to get your thoughts on these. First, being what is one thing that you would say to someone who is just starting to grow their family?
I think one thing I say a lot is even if you think that it's gonna at moments be easy, it's not. Every time I thought like, oh, I'm getting through this hoop, another one came up. And at the same time, I want to say, under no circumstance, give up because I want to give you permission to like keep fighting, even if people in your orbit are like, stop. Because I look at my kid today and I'm like, if I didn't fight for you, like you wouldn't be here. And I really think about that a lot. And sometimes people just need that permission. Like, during my journey, I felt like I was cuckoo so many times. And like people were like, just be happy with what you have. And you can have both, hope and happiness.
Mm. Yeah, that's such a beautiful thing to think about. What would you say, how can someone show up for someone in their life who might be struggling to build their family right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think great things are to truly be accepting. So you might have your own happy time, maybe a kid's birthday party or a new birth, or you want to invite your friend out for your birthday or something like that. Give your friend grace if they don't want to come. Like, truly give them an out. Do not be offended. Sometimes I hope that the person going through infertility can allow themselves to say no if they just can't do something. But like, as the friend or as the family member, truly understand they're going through a really hard time. It's not about you. It has nothing to do with you. And if you love this person, just give them grace.
Mm. Yeah,
I love that.
yeah, it's great to remind people this is not about you. This is
Mhm.
about supporting the other person. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been so lovely getting to know you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And the work that you're
Course.
doing is phenomenal. Really
You.
appreciate knowing that you're out there in this space too, and we can definitely refer folks your way.
Same. Thank you. I appreciate you guys and thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week with more family building stories and resources. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so that you never miss an episode. And follow us on social media at allpathsfb or visit our website, allpathsfb.org, to learn more about our work. And please help spread the word so that anyone who is struggling to grow their family can join the conversation. All Paths Family Building is so grateful to the members of our circle of support. And today we want to recognize and thank bronze sponsor Femisys. Your partnership is vital to our ability to provide emotional support, education, and advocacy that is open to anyone who is struggling to grow their family. And to the entire All Paths community, thank you for being here. It's an honor to walk with you on your journey.